Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very senior and accomplished professional, a fellow member of the YPO from Qatar, Wisam Costandi. Wisam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction as well. You're making me blush.
Thank you. Wisam is the founder and managing director of IQ, which is Informatica Qatar. And as I mentioned, he is a member of the YPO. So Wisam, before we talk about IQ, tell me a little bit about your own journey in brief.
Sure. So I've been in Qatar for about 15 years. When I moved out here from San Francisco in 2008, it's actually my 15th year. I was living in San Francisco for about 7-8 years. And before that in Florida and Chicago for another 7-8 years. Before that, I was in Switzerland. And when I was very young, I was in Saudi Arabia. So funny enough, I went into university to study biomedical engineering, which is what my undergrad is. Then when I graduated, I worked for an ISP. People still remember what that is.
Yeah.
Internet service provider in the late 90s. And then after a couple of years there, I had some shares that was sold, and I said, "Oh, I'm done with the internet. I'm fed up with it." So I went back and I did graduate school in biomedical engineering as well, and then I got my MBA. And funny enough, I thought, this was the end of the IT internet for me in 2000, 2001. And after working at Deloitte Consulting for a few years, I went right back into entrepreneurship in the high-tech space.
Amazing. And as they say, the rest is history. So
the rest is history, yes.
Wonderful. So let's talk about Informatica Qatar, which is IQ. Tell me about what you're doing here and what was your motivation to start it?
Sure. So in about 2007, as I said, we were living in San Francisco, my wife and I, we had a son, a newborn. We were, basically yuppies, living. She was at Gap headquarters. I was Deloitte, then startup. And a family friend reached out to me in Qatar and said, let's do something here in Qatar. It's booming. Let's do something in technology and IT. So we came to visit in 2007, and we said, you know what? This is the right time in our life to do this jump. So we were on board early 2008. We moved out here. By then, my wife was pregnant with our daughter. And then we made the move out here. And, you came out, like many people, we had a misconception in Qatar 15 years ago. We didn't know what to expect, but we arrived here to visit, and there was a skyline. They're constructing skyscrapers on the water, and when we saw the opportunity that we could possibly do something here. So I think it's a question of they say timing is everything, but that's timing almost comes down to luck. So 2008, we moved. We saw that the U.S. market was starting to slow down. We had no idea it was going to be this subprime crisis and financial collapse that it was going to be.
Yep.
So we got out just in the nick of time to come here. And here we felt a bit of the effects of it. But basically, I landed here with my 2 suitcases and said, "Okay, what the heck do I do now? Where do I go from here?"
Very interesting. And what are the kind of work you're doing at IQ?
So we do specifically in IQ, we focus on what's called ELV, integrations or extra low voltage. So what that means is on the large construction projects, we do all the technology, the security, the network infrastructure, the building management system, the fire alarm, all that we do. So we basically followed the wave of construction that happened here. Now, little did we know that we were going to be awarded the World Cup, and there was going to be a crazy boom in this sort of work. But we've been very busy here. I mean, we had amazing, people. When I first moved here, people thought I was crazy. How did you leave San Francisco to come to Qatar? But from a personal perspective, life here is great, safe, great for young kids. I mean, especially when we were children, we were very small. You could be on the moon. You can't do anything anyway. You can't go out to eat. You can't do anything. You're stuck with the kids. We have help at home here, something in Europe or the US is almost unheard of unless you're on the upper echelon of society. So from a personal perspective, it was great. From the work perspective, of course, the culture is very different here. We don't quite have not as litigious as in the US, or the proper legal framework, and everything is done in, with a cup of coffee and agreed on and to complete projects. So we focus on technology, but I've always, at my heart, always liked technology and high tech. So from here, I've spun out different companies, startups basically, and my latest one is in the aviation space. So the Qatar is really focused now on the startup ecosystem, which I'm mentoring companies and I'm involved with it. They support funding for basically startups anywhere in the world, as long as they have some presence in Qatar. So I focus a lot on that now.
Amazing. So we'll talk about startups, but one more question about IQ, and I was reading about you, that you work with multiple partners in several technology areas. What goes into managing so many multiple relationships?
So relationships, it's a good point. Relationships are obviously people-based. So even though a partner might be a huge conglomerate and a great reputation, you have to look at the ecosystem they have here. Let me give you an example. When I was in the US, we used to work with Dell a lot, and I liked the quality of products here. When they came out here, I wanted to continue working with Dell, but Dell did not have the ecosystem or the support infrastructure in place. Who had? HP had. Which is important, because it's one thing to sell a product and deliver it, but it's another thing to ensure that the quality is maintained and you have support. HP had that support. Consequently, we started working more with HP. So in the end, we are a services company in the sense that we have a project to do with multiple different vendors, multiple different technologies. And it's important for us to deliver the product which is right for the client at the right price. So, for example, when we look at our engineering team, it's important for our engineers to be versatile also. So when you look to hire people to work with different technologies, skills can be taught. That's probably the easy part. The important part when we're looking to recruit people is, can this person work with multiple technologies and adapt? It might be Avaya one day or Cisco the other. Are they qualified enough to understand how to work with them? From a partner perspective, you need to work with partners to understand the culture here as well. It's very different sales cycle here. It's different about payment terms, different about that. So it's important that you don't have someone coming from, I don't know, Sweden, a vendor from Sweden that comes here and expects, everything to be done as if you're in some Nordic country. Time is very loose here and very flexible. So it goes hand in hand with a big multinational, a big partner that understands, how to work locally as well.
Very interesting. So now let's talk a little bit about startups, Wisam. You mentor a lot of startups. Tell me a little bit about what are the areas of these startups that you normally work with, or are they across multiple categories?
Well, I work across, different industries or verticals that the startup wants to go to, because I am not, I'm not one, to decide what's going to be successful or not. Like if Airbnb came to me 10 years ago to invest, I probably would have said no, for example. So I'm not that. What's important for me when I work with startups, it's of course the team. Because they're doing something they know about, and they feel there's a need in that market. I don't know what every need in every single market is, but a startup will know that they've worked in this industry and they say, you know what, there's a gap in this. As I said before, skills are relatively easy, and entrepreneurs and young startups, engineers that want to jump into the startup world, they're all willing to work hard. They work long hours, they're always on, so forth. What's the most challenging part for entrepreneurs is, for me, the emotional balance that goes into it. For me, the two most important things for an entrepreneur is persistence and emotional resilience. So, because when you're starting up, your personal life or your self-worth is tied directly with your venture, your startup. So when you do well, the highs are very high, but when you don't do well, your lows are very, very low, bordering on depression and potentially suicide as well.
Correct.
So it's very important for me that, let startups know that first, it's a lot of work. You'll never work so hard in your life. I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult it is. And the second part is, of course, to manage your, keep your, it's still a job. It's just a bit, of course, it's kind of a double-edged sword because you still want this young startups to, dedicate their life to a startup because you're investing in it.
Yes.
At the same time, they have to understand that it's not tied to their self-worth. It's still just business is business. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe the product fit wasn't well done. You need to tweak it and so forth. So for me, those are the two important factors when I work with startups that are vastly underrated.
And based on all the startups that you would have worked with, what, in your opinion, are some of the basic mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
I think first one is they vastly underestimate the need for cash. You can never have too much cash, and the financial planning, so to speak. The second thing is, as I said, I don't think they understand or they underestimate the amount of work that's required in it. And when I say work, I just don't mean staying up 8 hours. I mean that you're going to have, setback after setback after setback. Get knocked down 7 times, get up 8.
Correct.
I think they underestimate, because the problem is, when you look at the media or the hype, and you look at, someone like, of course, Elon Musk now, okay, well, he almost, how many times did Tesla almost go bankrupt? He called up Apple to help bail them. He had horror stories, and he plowed through it, and and he came out of it. The other thing is, we hype the successful startups that are young because it makes good news. That's a tiny percentage. The average age of a very successful startup, the age of the founder, is like between 45 to 47 in the high-tech space, which is normal because they've lived life, they've had failures, and they understand and they learn. So when I see a 25-year-old fail, I say, it's great. It's a great lesson for you. Let's take it, pick up, brush off, see what you did wrong, recoup mentally, and then let's do it again. So there's a lot of bias that we see that unfortunately the startups might internalize.
Very interesting. Wisam, you just mentioned about the funding part, and that is my next question. Very often people have asked me this question: should a startup founder bootstrap as long as possible, or should they raise money whenever it's available?
I am a believer in the former. I believe you need to bootstrap as much as you can, for a few reasons. One, it improves your valuation. Second, it demonstrates you can hustle and you can actually, from nothing, create something when times are tough. And then thirdly, people won't give. I've never had someone give money when I've never seen anyone give money when they needed it. So this is usually the process. You have a great idea on a piece of paper, you show it to an investor, say, listen, support me. They'll say, build me a prototype. So you go, you hustle, you build a prototype. Then they look at it and say, well, will anyone actually buy it? Show me that, give me a proof of concept. You go, you give a proof of concept. Okay, someone actually use it. Will anyone pay for it? Now you have to go find, then you come back to them. So you have to do all this work anyway. And at the end, it's almost like a bank. A bank will give you money when you don't need it, when you're safe and that. Investor is not as risk averse as a bank, but when you've checked all the boxes and you've done all the hard, then they'll come and they will throw, they will give you money. So I've never been in a scenario where someone has given, if cash is available and someone says, okay, I'll take it. You always need to demonstrate your self-worth that you can do it.
Correct.
And you see, in the other case where you get easy money, easy come, easy go, you will, if you don't hustle for your money. Now, Informatica Qatar IQ, I built it organically from the ground up. So I've been through all the difficulties in cash flow. So I'm very, it's a sensitive point to me for cash flow. So bootstrapping for me is not an issue. And, there used to be times when I used to stay awake about how will I do payroll. IQ is not in that case, but in my other startups, there's cases like that, and I can manage them with a much clearer head. So I think it's important to be able to demonstrate bootstrapping and what you can do during that phase.
Fascinating. The other question that is often asked is on scaling up. Given the kind of market that exists across the globe, everyone is talking pan country, pan region, pan across the whole world, and yet there's probably enough market in one country for a startup. My question is, when should a startup founder start to scale up?
You mean scale up on a global scale?
Beyond his own little market in his own country or wherever?
Well, first, it depends on the appetite of the entrepreneur. I mean, I have seen companies here within 10 years grow to be, in the construction sector, billion riyal or, billion-dollar companies. I've seen other people have their business here for 40 years, and they've never gone beyond, $100,000 in revenue a year. So first, it depends on the appetite of the entrepreneur, assuming they do have an appetite and they want to take over the world. As I said before, the step-by-step process. Once you demonstrate that people are willing to pay for your product, then you've checked a lot of boxes for an investor coming in where they say, you know what, if we put more money in sales and marketing, we can actually take this on a global level. So it's not a matter of a specific time, 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's more when you because you might have the right product fit early on, and you tweak one thing, suddenly people are like, yeah, this is exactly what we need. And then people will start paying for that service. Now, I'm talking more from a enterprise business to business, okay? I'm not talking about getting traction and growing. I'm talking where you have to actually do sales. Then you can go to an investor, make the case, say, look, I need to scale up. At that point, if you get money, the only goal for you is to capture markets, to capture market share. So if you go back to an investor, the VCs, and you say, hey, I'm profitable, they'll be upset with you. They're like, that's not your goal. You're not spending enough money on sales and marketing. You need to capture 10, 20% of the market share because that's what our goal is. Yeah. But just going back to your question, it's when you can demonstrate that someone will actually pay for your product, I think would be the time to start seriously scaling up.
Well said. Wisam, you're also an investor in many startups. So you already mentioned what you look for, a good team, a good product, etc. At what stage do you look for an exit?
I usually stay till the end, so I don't usually go anything on the secondary market. In our part of the world here, it's not going to be IPO, okay, obviously, but it will be for an acquisition, merger or acquisition, which we've had a couple here in the region. We have in our region, we had a couple of unicorns now, obviously Kareem and a couple of others on the way. But really, those exits have all been through acquisition, and we look to make not huge amounts, maybe 5 times return, 3 times return on our money. So quite modest still in our area here.
And we spoke about the World Cup a little while ago. Has the World Cup opened up a lot of startup opportunities in Qatar?
Yes, actually, the World Cup, one of the main things, first, the World Cup was a phenomenal success beyond what, we were all hesitant, even in country, about how are we going to acquire this. It was beyond what we imagined success. And that has helped us a lot and has put Qatar on the map. Now, so it's helped. So, in India, I get approached from development companies, for example, and they say we have an office in Richmond, Virginia, but they're really in India, and they say they have an office in the U.S. to show that they're American, which because there's perhaps they want to show that they're Western, not Indian, has a bad connotation. Same thing in Qatar. We used to say, for talking to investors, no, we have offices in the U.S. or this, and okay, just some people are in Qatar or a back office in Qatar. That's shifted. So with my new startup, Emma, which is focused on the aviation sector, the fact that we are in Qatar, in this part of the world, is a big advantage for us. Okay. It's a big plus. First, the sector we're in aviation, we have Qatar Airways, we have Hamad Airport, #1 airport. We have in the region of the latest technology, so it's a big plus for us. So what the World Cup has done, it's removed the stigma about our part of the world, and they're backward or whatever the negative connotation might be. Other perspective is from a startup. Qatar needs to make its name for itself as well. So it had the construction industry that with a lot of investment. Now the concentration the focus has shifted slightly, obviously away from construction because we've built the country now. And it's focused more on how can we do not just really the soft power, but how can we, exert our influence on a larger level. And one of these ways is through supporting the startup community here. So we see a lot of partnerships in Qatar with investors or VCs in Silicon Valley. In fact, my company was selected. We're starting a program in Palo Alto in March. So a lot of these partnerships happening in order to support the startup ecosystem as we try to attract talent here from around the region and around the globe. So I guess the main thing the World Cup has helped for startups is to support remove the stigma of the negative connotation.
And build very strong credibility, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
So I have time for one more question, Wisam. And this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own amazing journey, Saudi Arabia, the US, San Francisco, Qatar, building your own companies, what would you say are 3 lessons or 3 learnings that you want our viewers and listeners to take away?
All right. I think the first one I think is very important, and that money doesn't buy happiness. What I mean by that is, people might do startups or entrepreneurships for the wrong reason.
Correct.
You need to have the reasons money isn't enough motivator for many people. You need to really want to make a change to the world. You really want to build something. I think that's important. The second thing is, the more that people are negative with you, or let's say I want to come to Qatar, a lot of people said I was crazy or what was I doing. The more people are negative with me, the more I felt that I was right and they were wrong. I find that people are negative or try to discourage you either because they're perhaps jealous because you're taking a step and they're not.
Correct.
And they're not being supportive for that reason. The third one I think is your reliability. I have been consistently good with people and reliable with people the whole time I've been here. In fact, when I first moved out here, one of our vendor partners said, "You'll never make it. You're too honest." In Qatar. This is your all you have in life is your credibility and your word. So, and that carries with you throughout your life. And people remember that. People don't remember what you said to them, but they remember how you made them feel. So I think it's very important to be reliable and follow to what you promise people.
Wonderful. And on that note, Wisam, and your 3 amazing lessons: money does not buy you happiness. Again, you said, whenever you're faced with negativity, your self-confidence grows significantly. And that's such a powerful comment that you made. The third one you said is reliability. I mean, people must know that they can trust you. People must know that, they get what they see when they talk to each one of us. And you've also emphasized the need for very strong relationships. Thank you for talking to me about your own amazing journey. Thank you for talking to me about IQ and the work that you're doing. And most importantly, thank you so much for the incredible amount of sharing you've done on startups and what are the opportunities for startup founders and what are the things that they need to know. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ash. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called you.